Welcome to the channel. I've got this 12-inch bandsaw that I really like to use, and I thought I'd show you how I made it and make another one. It all starts really with this pattern of the two edges or two sides of the saw. They're really the only complicated part of the whole thing, and I'm making this out of a piece of 5/4 beech that I had. Beech makes a great wood for this. It's nice and dense, it's nice and strong, and it doesn't bend much, and it's pretty easy to work with. So I take the pattern and just trace those two shapes out, and then I went and rough cut them as best I could with a saber saw. Didn't do the greatest job, but just made sure that I stayed outside of the lines and got roughly as close as I could, and then I would later shape the shape down to an accurate shape with rasps and then a spindle sander, which we'll get to that in just about a second here. I'm just cutting these out with my saber saw just to get them close. And there's all my cutouts, just to give you an idea. This piece of beech is actually a very nice looking piece of wood. So then I use these, which are just rasps. They take a lot of wood out in a short amount of time, so I just used those to get down as close to the line as I could, and then I finished it up with my oscillating spindle sander. This is a great tool. Like pretty much every tool in my shop, I bought it at a garage sale. Just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and it really works great. It doesn't leave very many scratches. It removes a lot of wood in a hurry. It's got a nice internal vacuum system. I hook it up to my shop vac, and I can sand away, and there's just zero dust. You can see on the tabletop of it, there's no dust laying around at all. The dust gets pulled down through that yellow ring that's around the spindle. Then I had to drill in the ends of the handles 2 1/2-inch holes that hold the grips, the handles, the part that holds the blade. So I used my Forstner bit and drilled 1/2-inch holes, which would become the bottom of both of those side pieces of the saw. I left these all in one piece so that I could work with it and have sort of a handle to hold on to. Next, I had to cut some mortises, and the mortises I cut were 3/4 of an inch long and 1/4 of an inch wide. And I have this mortising attachment to my drill press, so I put a 1/4-inch mortising bit in that, and each of those holes only took 3 plunges each to cut out. Then I just cleaned them up a little bit with a chisel, and I use a little 1/4-inch mortising chisel, and what I did is I undercut those mortises. I'll show you here in a second on SketchUp what I mean by that, because the saw has to be able to pivot a little bit on the center strut where it goes into these two mortises. Let me show you what that looks like on SketchUp. We're looking at this joint right here. If you take this apart, you see the mortise, or the tenon on that center strut, is square. But the mortise I undercut. I'll make this see-through, and you can see I undercut that so that when you put some tension on the string to tighten the blade, those sides can rock like that. So that's just something you want to remember. You don't want that tenon to fit super tight. So now I'm going to fabricate that center strut for the saw, and basically what I'm doing here is, with a stop positioned right where I need it and using my table saw sled, I'm cutting the tenons in the end of that to fit onto the sides. I'm testing the width to get that right, and I will just continue running it through the saw, clean it up a little bit with a shoulder plane, and I'll make the adjustment for the length to get it exactly the way I want it. It's 12 inches long between the two sides, and I'm just speeding it up here to finish up that tenon. And then I will clean that up again. Cut the shoulders by lowering the blade a little bit to get that exactly 3/4 of an inch wide. And remember, I'm leaving it a square tenon because it's the mortise that I've undercut a little to allow movement in one direction. So I just finished these up on the sled and pretty much have my centerpiece ready to go. Next, I want to round over all the parts, and so I'm checking this rounding over bit to see that it fits the round over that I used previously, and that's definitely the bit that I used. So I put that on my router table and then take all of the parts and basically round them over. And I round them over just like this. The round over bit leaves a very nice edge, and I just have to clean that up a little bit when I'm done with the spindle sander and just some hand sanding. And I left those two parts together in one long stick just to make it easier to maneuver the piece at the table. So then I got some more beech and glued it up to make the handles. And the handles are just turned on the lathe. I turn a long handle to hold in your guiding hand as you're using the saw, and then there's sort of a short, more of a knob on the other side, so that if you are going to turn the blade to use this saw like a coping saw, you can turn the handle and the knob at the other end, and the blade will turn. The blade would turn, of course, full 360 degrees. So I just got these handles good and close, did a little sanding. This is also beech, like I said. That center section is going to be, that's handle to handle. I'm going to cut that in half. So I'm turning that center section down to a 1/2 inch diameter because that has to match the 1/2 inch holes that I drilled in the two sides of the saw. So it took a while to get this down to a perfect 1/2 inch. You see me using my calipers there, but I got it to work, and it ends up fitting just super nice and super tight in the two ends of the saw. So once I got this down to shape, I used a little sandpaper on it. Then I will put some shellac on it. Shellac's a good finish that I like to use. And then I put a little bit of paste wax on it. And there I am, just kind of finishing sanding, getting it as close as I possibly can. And I'll take my saw here in a moment, using the parting tool to get that down to a little bit closer to 0. Use a pile of sawdust to burnish it a little bit. There I'm putting some wax on it and burnish it a little bit more and just cutting it off. So there's my two handles for either side of the saw. Now I have to cut a groove in these handles because they have to accept the blade. So each handle will have a groove cut in the center of it. And I used my Japanese saw to get a nice, clean, straight cut. Then I used the actual bow saw to widen the gap to match the width of the blade. Same blade going to be on that. There's the blade I'm testing the fit. So I started each of these cuts with the Japanese saw and finished them with the bow saw to make those grooves fit the blade. And here I am just sort of putting the thing together and kind of making sure that my 12-inch blade is going to fit it well. So that's pretty much the layout. Taping that there. I've got a 12-inch blade. It's a bandsaw blade, really, that I just bought at a bandsaw blade place. They cut me a foot. I drilled a hole on each end. And that's basically held to the handle with simply a little pin. I drill a little tiny 1/8 inch hole in each of these, and I also drilled holes in the ends of the blade. And I'm just literally just snipping some nails into some little pins. And you'll see here how this goes together. In fact, I think I did a close-up of this in SketchUp as well to just show you how these pins fasten to the handle and to the blade. Then I just used the string. I've got some good tough nylon string and went around there I think 5 times. You put a stick in it, twist it, and that's what gives you tension on the blade. So this is what it looks like knocked down. It's really a simple saw. It's made out of these just few handful of parts. And it goes together real easy, real fast. You can see those are allowing some play. Like I said, I undercut those tenons, or I undercut the mortises. There's the string. I just simply slip the blade in that slot in the handle and put the little pin in. Still kind of hard to see from this video, but I did do a close-up of this in SketchUp. That'll be coming up here any second. Yeah. So basically at each handle there's a groove and a pin, and you see the saw goes in and the pin goes through there, and that's all there is to it. So that holds that. You put the stick in and turn it, and you feel for the tension of the blade, and if you like it, you're good. If not, you take another couple turns until you feel like it's nice and stiff. And then generally when I store this saw on the shelf, I'll back that tension off so it doesn't have to be so tense. If you like this video, please subscribe. Thank you.